All right, so today we are ready for indicator 5, and we are working with point slope form today. So like I said yesterday in class, your equations are going to look unfinished, and there will be certain times that you guys can get two different answers, and that's totally okay. So we're only going to do a few examples, and just to remember, point slope form is that y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So this is point slope form. Now I will tell you today we will be using the slope formula. There will be some times where you have to find points. So we will be referring back to the slope formula, which I started to write the wrong thing. And we got x2 minus x1. And then we also will be using some information from slope intercept. So one thing that we need to know today is that this value with the coefficient with x is the slope of the equation. Those are some things that we're going to use in addition to the point slope form. So let's go ahead and get started with our first example. So I'm going to give you this time just a point that the line is going through. So we would do something like -2, -4. And let's have a slope of 3. So with our point slope form, we know that we're going to substitute some numbers in. Our ordered pair, the x coordinate is going to go in for x1. The y coordinate goes in for y1. And then last but not least, our slope goes in for m. So then if we want to set this up, we are going to do y minus -4, which we're going to change that to a positive in just a second, equals 3 times x minus -2. Now, we have substituted, but I do want you guys to change a minus a negative to a positive. So this is your point slope form. The point slope form still has the parentheses. It's unfinished. This is point slope form. So today, you're not distributing, you're not doing anything, you're simply just plugging it in and then quitting. And I know that probably sounds a little different because we did a lot more than that earlier in the week, but I thought this would be a nice break for an e-learning assignment. So let's go ahead and try one that has 2 points. So if you have 2 points, just like we did yesterday, you will have to find the slope. So if I give you, let's just say that we plotted these 2 points and we drew a line. In order to write your equation, you have to have a slope. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so we know on top we're going to subtract 4 minus 3. And on the bottom, 2 minus 0, which ends up being 1 over 2. So we have a slope of 1/2. Now, in this case, to write an equation, we talked about this yesterday, you can actually pick either point. So I do want you guys to know when you go to your equation, if you choose the point 0, 3, your point slope form would be y minus 3, because that's the y coordinate, equals slope is 1/2 times x minus 0. That would be it. So this would be what I have written in red would be your point slope form if you choose the point 0, 3 to write your equation. Now, you can also have an alternative. If you use the point 2, 4, you would have y minus 4 equals 1/2. And then in your parentheses, you would have x minus your x coordinate of 2. So these both would give you the same line, same slope intercept form. It's just starting with the other point. So on these point slopes, again, you just pick one of the points and then you go from there. So we're almost finished. I have 2 more challenge problems. And whenever you have 2 lines that never cross, those are what we call parallel lines. And so something that we need to know about parallel lines is that they have the same slope. They increase or decrease at the same rate, and that's why they never cross. So you are going to have two problems today that are just a little challenge. So I'm going to give you a point to use, something like this, but instead I'm going to say it's parallel to this other line, y equals 2/3 x minus 2. So we know that we're definitely going to use this for x1 and y1. Now we need a slope to write an equation, and so parallel means the same slope. The slope of the equation that we're given, so we're talking about this equation, there's two numbers there. There's a 2/3 and a -2. The slope is 2/3, so that is what we're going to use for our slope. So then our point slope would be y minus 2 is my y coordinate, coming from that number right there. So this number is where that came from. And then we have equals. Now we have our slope is 2/3. And then in your parentheses, we have x minus -1, which we can change to a +1. And so then our -1 turns into a positive, because when you subtract a negative, it becomes a positive. This is your point slope form. Again, we're still writing all of our answers today are going to be in point slope. So you will have parentheses for every answer. You're just plugging in and quitting. All right, and then last but not least, we have two lines. If they're not parallel, the opposite of parallel is perpendicular. So you have perpendicular lines, and perpendicular lines have complete opposite slopes. So a slope is normally the rise over the run. Now, if you do a slope that's perpendicular, you do the opposite sign, and then you flip the rise over run to find out the new slope. So this is just an example. So if I tell you that you have a slope of +3, the perpendicular slope would be an opposite sign. So since this one is the first slope I gave you is a positive, this perpendicular slope is a negative. And then a whole number 3 is really 3/1. So the perpendicular slope, we flip that fraction around. So this is the slope we would work with, a perpendicular slope. Now, if you have a slope, if I give you a slope of -4/3, the perpendicular slope that you would use would be a +3/4. So on that perpendicular slope, you change the sign. If it's a negative, change it to a positive, vice versa. If it's positive, change it to a negative. And then we flip the fraction. So I'm going to give you an example like that. Let's go with a 0.34. But this time we're going to be perpendicular to y equals 2x minus 1. So we know we're going to use the 0.34 for x1 and y1. Now the slope of the line that I'm given, so this is actually an equation for a line. The slope of that line is 2. So the slope of the line that you're given is 2. So to do the perpendicular slope, it's the opposite sign. So the equation that I gave you was a +2. So this will be a negative. And then you flip that fraction, because whole numbers are always over 1. So it's going to end up being -1/2. So we're going to use -1/2. So then to write your equation, we're going to go with y minus 4 equals -1/2 times x minus 3. Now, if you guys have questions throughout the day, don't forget you can call me, email me, whatever you need. Have a great day.